Chapter 21. Brian. I rushed through the day at the coffee shop, and I was glad I'd made the right decision. With Val on the brain, it was a wonder I'd been thinking straight. I'd hoped Val had gone to the bank and headed back to Lane and Scott's place. Lane had stopped by to check on how things were going at the coffee shop, and I had to tell them about the misunderstanding in hiring 2 managers for the day shift. I explained to Lane that Kenneth and Miles were happy with their positions. I described what had happened, and that I'd given Miles extra pay and a chance to make all the overtime he needed for the night shift. Brian, you'd think this was nothing new to you. I've seen you handle minor things like hiring and giving people their job assignments in your sleep. You could have told me, and I would have made it clear to one of them. Caden wanted Kenneth to manage during the daytime, and I'd agreed. Why wasn't I consulted? You said you had just bought a new home and needed time off. I reminded him. Oh yeah? Now I remember. Talking to Lane while Scott relaxed with a cup of tea had taken more time than I had expected to spend there, because I had some business I needed to discuss at Wounded Inked. Therefore, after dealing with Lane, I climbed into my car and drove around the corner to Tony and Parker's place. I expected Tony to be there, but I saw only Parker's new Jeep Wrangler, and I figured Tony had driven in with Parker or gone to the site where their company was building homes for the vets in Nevermore, and he'd be back soon. Those two were never away from each other for very long. When I stepped from my sports car, entered the tattoo shop, and made my way past all the customers getting their tattoos before the weekend, I realized that Tony wasn't there, and I needed to discuss the finances with him, but I guessed since he and Parker had been a team in the negotiations with me, there was no need for him to be present. I could take it up with Parker. However, when I breezed through to Parker's office, he had his hand on his hip, his eyes narrowed, and Taylor standing in front of him with a lowered head. I thought after what Taylor had put me through, he deserved the dressing down that Parker would surely give. I knocked and Parker glanced up and saw it was me. He pointed at Taylor and said, "What the fuck? Just because you look like one of those Ken dolls, and you're a friend of Brian's, there is no fucking way you're getting any special treatment from me." I held my breath. Not a friend of mine. Knowing Parker, he wanted me to be a witness to this conversation, especially since I'd saddled him with someone like Taylor, arrogant, narcissistic, and a pain in the ass. Do you see what I have to put up with, Brian? Better you than me, I thought. You only see one side of the equation, Taylor answered. He really didn't realize who he'd confronted when he spoke up, hoping that he had a friend or cover with me. I prayed he wasn't stupid enough to pull any more of those antics with Parker or Tony. I thought he hadn't, because there were no scratches or marks on his cute face. I was sure if he had stripped and pulled out his long, impressive cock, Parker would have been all over him, but not in a good way. Just listen to him, Parker said, then mocking him. You only see one side of the equation. And what the fuck does that mean? I hope you aren't talking down to the men in here, because you'll find yourself out on your ass in a minute. And I don't give a rat's ass if you're in college, can't pay your tuition, or know the law. Make my day by trying to sue me or anyone. You don't know enough to fuck with me. It means? I know what the fuck it means. Parker turned to me. Do you see what I have on my hands? If I didn't need him now, I'd send him back to you. You put up with him fighting with your paraplegic vets. I narrowed my glance and furrowed my brow and aimed that expression at Taylor. He knew he needed this job, his brother had told me so, and here he was acting like a prima donna. And even Madonna couldn't act like an egotistical dick anymore, and that was what Taylor was doing. I guessed he couldn't help it, because he thought he was God's gift to gay men, but he'd met his match, because the only prima donna in Nevermore was Parker, and he wasn't ready to give up that title. Taylor batted his eyes and stepped closer to me. You understand, Brian. Not the fuck in the least, but I was waiting to hear his side of the story. There were always two sides, as the saying went. There was Parker's and Taylor's, then there was the truth. Parker had me cleaning up behind this guy without any legs. He has legs, you dick. Why do you insist on saying he has none? Those are mechanical ones, and he paid a price for his natural legs, and the ones he has now. All you have to do is shut up and help him connect them. With those legs he can walk better than you, and he can do everything or more with them. Have you seen him swim? I bet he can beat you, Parker said to make a point. He's the one being the dick. He orders me around like I'm his servant. For Christ's sake, you and Chad are fighting over nothing like an old married couple, Parker observed. Why don't you let him fuck you and get it over with? Are you out of your mind? I'm gay and he's straight, Taylor barked at Parker. Parker hid a grin, appearing serious, but I could see through his mischief. He probably put Taylor and Chad together, because Chad was straight. Parker must have seen the beauty in that matchup, but from where I stood it was a fucking mess and could get ugly. If you don't get out of my office and do some work around here, I'm cutting your overtime. Taylor shook his head and tightened his eyes and closed them for a second, then he turned and marched to the door. Taylor, don't forget you have to go with us to Grail and Caden's cabin for the weekend. I hope you don't have anything planned. And if I did? Well, you know what will happen, Parker said with a chuckle, then Taylor opened the door and stormed out. Why are you torturing him? I questioned. You know you don't want to fire him. I know, but he doesn't know it. And besides, he's a good worker, and although he grumbles, I think he likes Chad. Didn't he say Chad was straight? I questioned. He may be today, but tomorrow is another day, Parker chuckled. Now what is the problem, Brian? I just needed to speak to Tony about the finances, and to see how Taylor was getting along at his new job. If you need me to go over the books with you, I can. We are making money hand over fist, and with the housing we can donate some homes to these vets in here. We may be employing more than the federal government. Although I wish it were true, Parker added. When will Tony be back? I sat across from his desk. There was a desk nearby, more sturdy and antique-looking. It was something Parker had bought for Tony, and a computer. I didn't think Tony was into furniture, so I was pretty sure my first thought had been correct. Tony, oh, I forgot. I have too much to do. My husband loves to keep me busy, and I must admit that I enjoy the idea of working alongside him. Getting back to the subject. Val called and said that he was at the state fair with Sam. I haven't been to one in ages. Haven't had time. Standing, I said, did I hear that right? He's at the state fair with someone named Sam. I think that's who he said brought him there. I walked quickly to the door. Tell Tony we'll talk later. I have some place I needed to be hours ago. I rushed out of the office, and then on my way out the door, I heard Parker call Chad into his office. If anything, Parker was a fair man. He didn't take sides. He liked to get down to the bottom of things. I heard him say that he had to do it with his children, and with employees acting like children and not like adults, therefore he had to take the same approach with them as well. I knew how Parker felt when I stepped into my car, and it turned over and I heard the pipes roar, then I headed in the direction of the Ferris wheel. You could see it in a distance, and I had to pass by the sign with Val's face and body, and cars still stopping to ogle my boyfriend. Not knowing what would happen once I reached the fair, or where to find him, I thought, where would I find a young man who'd never been a boy? Parking, I bounded out and took off sprinting and dodging parents with kids. I hadn't been in a gym or jogging in months, and I had to stop and breathe. Then I spotted Val standing near Sam. It was him. Dark, thick hair, tall, wide shoulders, and then I realized that Sam almost resembled me. Was that why Val hadn't wanted me inside him? I wondered. Val appeared too comfortable giving me a blowjob, but we couldn't have that kind of relationship forever. We had to be together, so we could experience each other's body, kiss each other, whisper how much we wanted each other and needed the other. Those were my thoughts. I just hoped Val had the same ones I did. I had to caress him and take care of him the way I knew he needed. I had to be inside him, taking him gently and then hard. My mind was swirling with desire and need, and the notion that maybe Sam would take Val away from me. When I stood behind them, the man was handing Val the large stuffed panda bear, and Sam was passing his arm around Val's waist, when I yelled in the strongest voice I could muster. "Don't take his present. Give it back to Sam. I don't want my fiancé taking anything from anyone but me," I barked and stood between Sam and Val. I think I said fiancé, and if I didn't, I'd correct that very soon. There was no way in hell I'd let Val get away, especially since I knew we were good for each other. I'd missed my first chance when I first saw him. I should have dogged him until he gave in to me and gone with me, even if it meant me parking my vet and buying a bus ticket. I knew now that if I let this opportunity go, I would have regretted this forever. There would be no regrets this time.